And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game that is kind of the sequel to Biblios with dice, and that's going to be Scripts and Scribes dice, which is Scripts and Scribes, the game that Biblios is based off of. Now, instead of using card auctions, this is going to be dice and dice auctions in which you're trying to advance tokens on the board in order to earn gold, and whoever earns the most gold is going to be the winner. The game plays 2 to 5 players and plays pretty quickly, probably about 50 minutes to an hour. And it's really overall pretty simple. So why don't we get into the game, we'll look at what comes in that small box, how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and get my final thoughts on it. Here you can see the components for Scripts and Scribes dice. Now, all of these dice at the top should be set to 3, but this is going to be a pretty simple die rolling game in which players are going to be trying to earn money through various different actions. Now, on your turn, you're going to start with this pawn. If you're the start player, you're going to start with 10 money into your name, and you're going to roll these dice on your turn. And what you roll on these dice is going to somewhat dictate how you can take your turn. Now, if this yellow die right here rolls any of the money symbols, 1, 2, or 3 money, you can choose to simply take this die for the money, and your turn would end. Additionally, there's going to be another option. You can choose to take the adjustment die. It's going to show some combination of dice or one die, and values on those dice or die, either plus or minus. So for example, this one here is minus to 1 and plus to 1. And you could choose these dice up here. You can choose 1 to decrease 1 by 1 value, and you can increase 1 by 1 value. So the red becomes a 2 and the blue a 4. If you don't choose either of these, you can choose to take resources. So you look at these dice, and you can choose to take one color of resource. Well, there's the most blue. This one was blue, so I could choose to take all of the blue resources, and say I'm the green player, I adjust myself on the blue track by 2. So that's how this is going to work if this die rolls money. Now there are other options you can roll on this die. For example, you could roll on this die right here, the re-roll symbol. What this is going to let you do is on your turn, instead of just choosing one of the dice, you can re-roll dice, and your first re-roll is going to cost you 1 money. And each re-roll after that is going to cost you an additional money on top of whatever you paid. So let's say I didn't like these dice. I'm looking for more blue. I could re-roll these and hope I get more blue. Well, I did, so maybe I'd want to stop there, and then instead of taking the 2 on my turn, I'd take the 3. You kind of get the idea there with the re-roll. The next thing it could show is a resource auction. You can see this here. It has an auction on it, and what this would mean is that each player is going to take their hands, and this is going to kind of pause the normal style of play for a little bit. Each player will take their hands and they'll bid a certain number of cards face down. Now, they'll know what they're bidding because they're bidding money, but they would say, I'm going to bid 1 card. And you'd go around the table in this manner, each other player being able to bid cards. It would come back to you and you'd say, okay, I'm going to add a card, so now I'm bidding a total of 2 cards. And it's going to go until everyone decides to pass. At that point, you're going to reveal how much money is underneath all of these things. So I bid 3, and maybe that's the high bid. In this case, I'm going to take the turn, but I lose my money. So it kind of steals the turn from that player. However, after that person has won and taken their turn, it's going to go back to the active player. So you're essentially buying an extra turn by paying money for it in order to go out of order, but then it's going to go back to the player who was originally rolling the dice. The final option you're going to have is that money auction. So as I said, you'll go over the other ones and you'll have that money auction. And what's going to happen here is that each player in turn order is going to have the option of bidding how much they would take in order to take one of their tokens off of this track. Which is going to be bad for them at the end of the game, potentially, but could be good if they get the right amount of money. So they would start, you're going to want to start high, and you'd say, I would take 10 money to take one of my markers off of one of these tracks. 10 is the maximum you can say. And around in player order, everybody would be trying to go lower without going too low so that they don't lose out in the game, because what you're trying to collect is money. So maybe it gets down to 6, and everyone else decides they wouldn't take less than 6 money to take their token off of the board. So let's say blue bids 6, and they say, okay, well, I'm not doing very well in green. Maybe, this has been moved up, and these have been moved up like this. They're not doing very well in green. They decide to take their green token off the board in exchange for 6 money from the supply, which they would add to their hand. After this, the active player is going to continue taking their turn and do whatever they were going to do. So basically, the money and the resource auctions pause the game for a moment, but now blue has 1 less token on this board. The game is going to go on, and you're going to advance these tokens, and when you advance to these spots with the money on them, the first player there will get the money on the left, the second player there will get the money on the right, and you're going to continue on. Now, at the end of the game, you're going to get points based on where you are on these markers. And The game can end in any one of three possible ways. Either somebody gets their token all the way to the top of this purple track, which would immediately end the game at the end of their turn, or three of these markers get all the way to the top of their respective tracks, or someone has removed 4 of their markers from the game board through that money auction. And at this point, you're going to score extra points at the end of the game for various things. Now, basically, what you're going to score is your position on these tracks. If you are at the top of the track, and everybody else is lower than you, you're going to score the number of this die, so in this case 2, times 3. So this would be worth $6, and I'd get $6 to add to my supply. The second person is going to get the number times 1, so they would get 2 money for being second. That would go to red. And you'll score all of the tracks in this manner. You can't score anything if you haven't moved at all, so even if you're second in the 2-player game, you get nothing for being second. At the end of the game, whoever has the most gold by collecting gold in the game, from either taking the gold from the die, or from selling their markers off of the board, or from advancing on these tracks, is going to be the winner. And if there's a tie, whoever is furthest on this Abbott track on the right-hand side will break that tie and will be the overall winner of Scripts and Scribes Dice. Well, there you have it. That is Scripts and Scribes, the dice game. This is a pretty decent little dice game. I mean, it really does kind of get that feel of Biblios in a dice game. So instead of fiddling with the cards, you're rolling the dice and you're taking your action. But it feels much the same as Biblios did. Now, I like Biblios, but it's not a game that stayed in my collection because it didn't frequently get played, and because the value of it was so insanely high at one point that I couldn't justify keeping it for as little that I was playing it. Now, Scripts and Scribes dice will likely not stay in my collection either. I'm not a huge fan of dice rolling, but I do enjoy it from time to time. That said, I don't enjoy Scripts and Scribes dice enough for me to keep it, but I think there's a large audience out there, maybe who can't get their hands on Biblios, or who prefer dice to cards, that will really enjoy Scripts and Scribes dice, and I definitely think that those people should pick the game up and play it. It's just not something that's going to stay in my collection for very long, given my personal tendencies.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.